My name is Risa. I'm a 27-year-old office worker at a food processing company, and I've been married for 3 years. I met my husband Georgie, who is the same age as me, through a friend during our college days. After getting married, we decided to live together in an apartment close to my childhood home. Since my parents' house is out of state, I have to drive 2 hours to visit them, but I make it a point to see them every few months. Each time I do, I also make sure to visit the facility where my beloved grandmother, Cindy, lives. Taking care of Cindy, who has dementia, began for me before I got married. Mostly, it was my part-time working mother, Violet, who took care of Cindy. Caring for someone with dementia is incredibly challenging. There were times when I had to take over for an exhausted Violet, crying as I helped Cindy in the bathroom. As Cindy's dementia progressed, a gloom hung over our home. Cindy gradually forgot how to smile, and Violet and I often clashed over her care. Despite these challenges, several years later, as I was leaving home to get married, Cindy moved into a care facility. This was something she wanted. One reason I had been reluctant to have her stay in a facility was because of my own prejudices. I thought it was sad to put her in a facility, but when I actually visited, I was surprised. Soon, I realized my perception was wrong. The facility was bright and clean, with professional staff working efficiently. Most importantly, everyone there was smiling, and Cindy looked truly happy. Seeing this, we realized as a family that this was the best choice, even though it felt bittersweet. I wished we all could have continued in this peaceful state until Cindy's final days, but my mother-in-law, Rachel, had even more prejudice against care facilities than I used to. Every time we met, she would say things like, "Poor Cindy, isn't that abuse? A facility is like a prison." And a parade of abusive language with a nasty smile. Her words were not out of concern for Cindy, but rather to attack me. I would retort, "That's right. So please don't ask me to take care of you, Rachel. It would be shameless to be cared for by someone you've criticized like this." This would often anger her. Georgie always sided with me, even considering cutting ties if behavior got too bad. Still, we maintained limited contact, meeting only for Christmas and family gatherings. After years of this strained relationship, I received a call from Violet saying she had something to show me at her house. I was curious about what it could be. Violet showed me bundles of diaries. They were Cindy's, spanning decades. The earliest entries were from long ago, detailing the day I was born, my first steps, my first day of school, and how much she loved my grandfather when he passed away. Most entries were about ordinary days, but some mentioned how my teenage rebellious words hurt her. Reading them, I felt regret, sadness, and nostalgia. Unable to hold back tears, I read on until I found a shocking entry. It described how Cindy, in the early stages of dementia, had taken a train alone to visit my grandfather's grave. At that time, we didn't fully understand what dementia was. She got lost, causing a big commotion. In her diary, Cindy wrote, "I was anxious. I worried Risa especially." Her once beautiful handwriting had transformed into shaky, childlike scribbles. The last legible line read, "I need to be stronger." That's what it was. Reading that, Violet and I embraced and cried. She was scared. She was anxious. Only now did I understand how Cindy felt. After a good cry, Violet showed me these diaries. "You were the best friend to Cindy." She let me have it. I put it in a drawer in my bedroom closet and took great care of it. But something terrible happened regarding this notebook. The incident happened the year after I received the diary. I was planning with Georgie to visit Rachel's place for Christmas, which is a month away. One day before Christmas, I got a call from Rachel asking me to come over alone. Given the unpleasant stories about Rachel, I consulted Georgie, who advised me, "You better not go." But with Rachel's intriguing words, I have something nice to show you." Piqued my curiosity, and I decided to go with Georgie accompanying me. Since Rachel had insisted I come alone, I had Georgie wait in the car, and with a sense of alertness, I visited Rachel's house. As soon as we met, Rachel greeted me with a disturbing smile. "You've seen this, haven't you?" To my astonishment, what she proudly presented was Cindy's diary. I had never even mentioned its existence to Rachel, let alone shown it to her. What? How? Why? I had kept it in a place that no one could find. My legs started shaking uncontrollably, barely able to stand despite my desire to appear calm. Rachel explained to me that she had borrowed the apartment key by pretending to be a relative of the owner, then sneaked into my place during my absence to find something incriminating. She found the bundle of diaries in the closet. Closets have always been the place to hide important things, just as I thought, she said excitedly. Embarrassingly, I hadn't noticed the intrusion. Though my heart was far from calm, I tried to hide my panic and pressed Rachel to return the diary. "That makes you a thief, doesn't it? Oh, Rachel, have you stooped to thievery now? Please give it back." As I said this, Rachel replied with a disgustingly joyful smile. "Oh, the always tough you, now so weak and vulnerable. This must be something very precious." Unable to bear it any longer, I called Georgie on my mobile phone, who I had told to come immediately if anything happened. Georgie rushed over from the car, which infuriated Rachel. "Risa, didn't I tell you to come alone?" "How could I come alone when I don't know what you're capable of, Mom? What's that you're holding?" Georgie retorted angrily. Ashamedly, "Please give it back." All I could do was cry out. But Rachel, with a malicious smile, began flipping through and reading aloud from the diary, reminiscent of middle school bullying. What's this? Ew, even a grade schooler could write better than this. Was Risa's grandmother really that stupid? Or was it the illness? Oh, how dreadful. Diseases of the brain happen because of bad deeds, right? Rachel read out loud from the part of the diary where Cindy was suffering from dementia, seemingly enjoying it. I was always ready to face off with her without resorting to such tactics. The way Rachel looked down on Cindy, using her weakness, was utterly despicable. "Stop! Give it back!" Georgie, infuriated, was about to grab her when, to our horror, "Oops, my hand slipped." She plunged the diary into a pot. Rachel exclaimed, "Into a pot of stew." It was clearly intentional, unforgivable. Georgie was screaming in rage, and I was beyond calm. What should I do? How should I punish her? While Georgie and Rachel argued, fueled by the resentment and anger, I ran around the room searching for anything Rachel might cherish, anything that looked expensive. I didn't know her taste, but I gathered jewelry, cosmetics, fur, and clothes. Rachel chased after me. "Wait!" But she couldn't match my pace. Pleading, as I grabbed as many valuable-looking items as I could and threw them into the pouring rain in the garden, soaking them in rainwater and mud, but my anger wasn't quenched. Next, I grabbed the pot and hurled its contents at Rachel. It had cooled a bit, but was still slightly hot. What happened to Rachel was none of my concern. I retrieved the diary, but it was mostly ruined from being soaked in stew. Seeing this, I screamed and threw everything I could find in the fridge and cupboards. I wreaked havoc in every way possible. How much time had passed? The place looked like a battlefield, but I started to calm down. Then I turned to Rachel and said, "Rachel, you're lucky you weren't hurt. Or should I make you so injured you'll need care for the rest of your life? Yes, that sounds good. Oh, but I won't care for you. Spend your remaining years alone. Or maybe caring for you might be fun. I could do whatever I want, right? Yes, let's do that." Hearing this, Rachel crawled around whimpering, "Eek," like a frog. Later, Georgie told me I had a creepy smile, that he had never seen me like that before. I knew my wife was strong-willed, but I never imagined she'd become that way when angry. I couldn't stop her while she was raging, so I just let her be until she was done. I thought if the neighbors heard and called the police, we could somehow explain it. That's what Georgie had been thinking. Georgie said, "That's enough for now." He dragged me to the car. However, Rachel, misunderstanding the situation, clung to Georgie. "Georgie, you're on my side, right? You saw it. Violence is scary." Pleading, but Georgie shook her off briskly, repulsed. "Disgusting. Don't touch me. I was appalled by your past actions, but this time, I'm utterly disgusted. I hate Mom as a person now." After cutting ties with Rachel, Georgie pushed me into the car and got into the driver's seat. I was in a daze, holding the ruined diary, unable to do anything else. Shaking uncontrollably, tears streaming, I felt nauseous and, failing to hold it back, ended up vomiting on Rachel, who was ranting outside the car. Covered in vomit, Rachel screamed, "Risa, I'll never forgive you, even if you apologize." But Georgie retorted, "Who's apologizing? Even if Mom does, we're never seeing her again," he replied. Hearing that, I felt a sense of liberation, realizing I didn't have to see the person who trampled not only on my life, but also Cindy's. I don't have to meet the person who not only trampled on my life, but also the life of my beloved Cindy. Georgie's stance of abandoning the obligatory relationship because I was his wife's mother made my heart lighter. However, the diary couldn't be restored to its original state. After returning home, I carefully cleaned and dried it. Some pages could be turned, but most of it was wavy and unreadable. Overwhelmed with sadness and emptiness, I decided to cherish the parts that remained intact. Georgie's increased kindness helped me start to recover. Later, when we raised a complaint to the apartment owner about Rachel's break-in, it turned out she had entered months ago, which left us speechless at her thieving skills. Georgie said, "I don't ever want to deal with that criminal again, except maybe at her funeral," crying. But since our apartment location was known, we couldn't risk future incidents. We considered moving and, in the meantime, added more locks to our apartment, installed an alarm system that rings with vibration, and set up dummy cameras in the entrance and inside, with one real camera inside the house. Our security measures were extreme for a rental apartment, but we managed it with full support from the owner, as the burglary was due to their oversight. Regarding moving, Georgie had tough negotiations, ensuring we'd get support, so we had no financial worries. Despite my efforts, my stomach continued to hurt, so I ended up needing to visit the hospital. Seeing my condition, Georgie said, "We don't need this anymore," and removed the home phone, which almost exclusively received calls from Rachel. Since most of the communication with Violet was through mobile phones, we weren't worried, and it did help ease my mind. Georgie also wanted to apologize to my family, but I didn't want to cause unnecessary worry, so we held off on that. Instead, I suggested, "Then make me happy instead," which unexpectedly made him break down in tears. Watching him cry, I remembered something Cindy once said. "If you keep saying life is hard, only hard times will come. But if you say life is fun, fun times will find their way to you." If Cindy said it, maybe there's truth to it. With Georgie, I feel like it could come true. A month later, Georgie told me about a recent visit to my parents' house, a fact he initially withheld considering my mental state. After removing the home phone, Rachel had called him dozens of times. When she saw him, she clung to him again. He described her as pitiful and diminished, but she only spoke ill of me, asking, "You'll divorce that wife and come back home, right?" Seeing Rachel in that state, Georgie told my father-in-law, Sean, "I'm sorry, but I don't want to see Mom anymore. So, Dad, please take care of Mom. Making her happy is your responsibility, just as making Risa happy is mine." In response, Sean quietly apologized. "I'm sorry for everything so far," and pulled Rachel away. When it was time to leave, Rachel was sitting on the floor, crying bitterly. Also, on the day I lashed out, Sean had taken a screaming Rachel to the hospital. Until now, Sean had always been the one to quietly say, "Sorry, Risa." After any conflicts with Rachel, giving off a sense of resignation in dealing with her volatile temperament. But this time, he seemed to realize something was wrong with his wife and decided to get her examined. At this point, the doctors hadn't given a definitive diagnosis, but it seems like Rachel might be suffering from empty nest syndrome. She felt as if her son, whom she had raised with all her effort, had been taken away by some unknown daughter-in-law, like a mother bird overwhelmed by the emptiness of her nest. The current approach is to help her accept reality. We don't have children yet, but hearing this made me feel sorry for her. Georgie, sensing my sympathy, firmly said, "Risa, are you thinking of going easy on her? That's why I thought it'd be better not to talk about this later. Whether it's illness or not, remember how many times we've been hurt by showing leniency. It's enough. I'm sorry." It seemed Georgie was much angrier than I was. Upon reflection, the act of breaking into our house to find faults in his wife, stealing and ruining a cherished diary, and even denigrating her grandmother is despicable, something you rarely see even in dramas. No matter how lonely a parent feels after their child's marriage, if my own parent did something like that, I'd reconsider our relationship. Rachel lost something important to her in exchange for destroying something precious to me. It's a significant price to pay, but if she can recognize the presence of Sean, her closest and most important person, maybe she can find happiness. Saying this might make Georgie accuse me of being too lenient again, but if Rachel treasures Sean, realizes her actions, and sincerely apologizes, maybe I could consider meeting her just once more. That day might never come, but she is still my husband's parent after all. However, right now, I feel like I might hit her if I saw her, so I really don't want to meet her for a while.